The Galactic Military Academy stood on the frozen moon of Seven, a place where the best warriors from 100 worlds came to learn. For 3,000 years, species from across the known galaxy had sent their finest children here. They came to study tactics, to master weapons, and to prove themselves worthy of commanding fleets. Humans had only joined the galactic community 40 years ago. They were still new, still strange, still underestimated. Was the seventh human ever accepted to the academy? She was 22 years old with dark hair cut short and eyes that watched everything. She was smaller than most of the students around her. They stood 3 meters tall with 4 arms. They had natural armor plating on their skin. They could see in total darkness. Compared to them, looked fragile. She had arrived at the academy 3 months ago. In that time, she had learned to ignore the looks. She had learned to work twice as hard. She had learned that nobody expected anything from her. Today was the long strike examination. It was the most important weapons test of the first year. Students would fire at targets placed across vast distances. The test measured accuracy, patience, and the ability to account for wind, gravity, and planetary rotation. Success meant honor. Failure meant shame. The examination hall was massive. It had been carved from the moon's gray rock. Tall windows showed the black sky and the distant glow of the gas giant that Seven orbited. Rows of seats held students from dozens of species. At the front, the instructors sat in silence. Head instructor was ancient and from 100 battles. His 4 eyes moved slowly across the gathered students. Beside him sat instructor Maylaz, a female whose armored plates gleamed under the lights. They represented the best the galaxy had to offer. "Today you prove your worth," announced. His voice was deep and filled the hall. "The long strike is not merely a test of skill, it is a test of spirit. Anyone can fire a weapon. Few can make it sing across distance." Sat in the 3rd row, surrounded by students who were taller, stronger, and more experienced than her. To her left was a male who had spent his childhood hunting in the endless caves of his. To her right was a named, whose family had produced warriors for 1,000 generations. Neither of them looked at her. None of them ever did. The first students were called forward. They walked to the firing positions at the front of the hall. Each position had a specialized rifle connected to the Academy's sensor network. The targets were placed at various distances across the moon's surface. The closest was 1 kilometer away. The farthest was nearly 800 kilometers on the opposite side of the small moon. A young male stepped up first. He was confident, his plates clicking as he moved. He lifted his rifle, took aim, and fired at the 5-kilometer target. The sensors hummed. A display above the hall showed the result. The shot had landed within 2 meters of the target center, a good score. The watching students clapped politely. More students took their turns. Some hit close to center, some missed entirely. They took his turn and struck within 1 meter of the center at 10 kilometers. The crowd murmured with appreciation. Hours passed, watched and learned. She noticed how they held their rifles differently because of their extra arms. She watched how they braced against their natural armor. She saw how they trusted their superior vision. None of them knew what humans were capable of. Finally, late in the day, her name was called. "Human." The hall fell quiet, not out of respect but out of curiosity. The alien students turned to watch the small human walk to the firing position. Some whispered to each other. Some smiled, expecting entertainment. Kept her face calm. She had felt these looks her whole time at the academy. She had felt them her whole life on Earth, where she had grown up in the slums of New Shanghai, where she had taught herself to shoot using broken equipment and stolen ammunition. She had nothing to prove to them. She only had something to prove to herself. She reached the firing position and picked up the rifle. It was designed for hands larger than hers, but she had practiced with similar weapons in the training halls. She knew its weight, its balance, its heartbeat. Select your target distance, Instructor Melaz said. Her voice was flat, bored. The standard choice for first-year students was 5 or 10 kilometers. The ambitious ones might try 20. No first year had ever attempted more than 50. 800 kilometers, said. The hall went silent. Then, slowly, laughter began. It spread through the rows of students like a wave. 800 kilometers was the maximum distance. It was reserved for fourth-year students with years of training. Even among them, success was rare. Instructor raised one of his 4 hands. The laughter stopped. Human, he said, do you understand what you are requesting? The maximum distance shot accounts for planetary rotation, atmospheric variations, and gravitational fluctuations. It requires calculations that take years to master. I understand, said. If you fail, it will be recorded. Your score will reflect the failure. I understand. Studied her with his 4 eyes. Something in his ancient face shifted. Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps it was pity. Very well, you may proceed. Turn back to the firing position. She lifted the rifle and settled it against her shoulder. The weight felt right. The balance felt true. She looked through the scope at the distant target, a small platform on the moon's far side that she could only see through the Academy's sensor relay. The room held its breath. Students leaned forward. Instructors watched with narrow eyes. Did not think about them. She thought about the target. She thought about the calculations she had been running in her head for weeks. She thought about the rotation of the moon, the pull of the gas giant's gravity, the thin wisps of atmosphere that clung to the surface. She thought about all the variables that made this shot impossible. Then she thought about her grandmother who had survived the Beijing collapse. She thought about her mother who had worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. She thought about every human who had ever been told they were too weak, too small, too new. Humans were not strong like they were not armored like they were not gifted with special senses like but they had something else. They had stubbornness. They had patience. They had the ability to adapt and overcome. She pulled the trigger. The rifle kicked against her shoulder. The sound was sharp and quick, then gone. Silence fell over the examination hall as everyone watched the sensor displays. The tracking system followed the shot. It was designed to monitor projectiles across vast distances, to record their paths and calculate their accuracy. On the main display, a small dot represented its bullet as it traveled across the frozen surface of 100 kilometers, 200, 300. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. Lowered the rifle and watched the display. Her heart was beating fast, but her hands were steady. She had done what she could do. The rest was physics and fate. 400 kilometers, 500. The bullet was slowing now, affected by the thin atmosphere and the pull of the moon's weak gravity. The calculations had to account for all of it. A mistake of 1/10 of 1 degree would mean missing by kilometers. 600 kilometers, 700. The instructor leaned forward in his seat. His 4 eyes were fixed on the display. Beside him, Melaz had stopped breathing. The armored female looked like a statue carved from stone. 750 kilometers, 780. The bullet entered the target zone. Then the display flashed. Numbers appeared. The sensors had logged the strike. Center target, 0 deviation. For a long moment, nobody understood what they were seeing. The number sat on the display, glowing softly. 0 deviation, a perfect hit. Then the Academy's emergency communication system activated. It was not supposed to do that. The emergency system was only triggered by significant events, threats, or anomalies that affected the entire station. A voice came through the speakers. It was the Academy's central computer, calm and mechanical. Attention! Seismic sensors across 7 have logged an impact event at coordinates 7743 by 9921. Energy signature consistent with standard Academy training ammunition. Impact recorded simultaneously by sensor stations on all 6 continents of the Moon. This is logged as a Level 4 accuracy event. No further action required. The hall remained silent. The computer's announcement echoed off the stone walls and faded. Level 4 accuracy events were almost never recorded. They required a precision that few living beings could achieve. The last one had been logged 200 years ago, when a legendary marksman had made a similar shot during his final examination. But that marksman had been a 4th-year student with decades of training and genetic modifications to enhance his already superior senses. He had been the greatest shooter his species had ever produced. Was a first-year human who had been at the academy for 3 months. Instructor rose from his seat. The ancient walked down from the instructor's platform, his heavy footsteps loud in the silence. He stopped in front of and looked down at her. She was so small compared to him. The top of her head barely reached his chest. "Human," he said, "explain how you did that." Met his 4 eyes without flinching. "I practiced, sir." "Practiced?" His voice held disbelief. "That shot requires calculations that our training computers take several seconds to complete. Our best students need targeting assistance to even attempt it." "I did the calculations in my head, sir." The whispers began again. This time they were not mocking. They were confused, uncertain. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to the gathered students. "The examination is suspended. All students will return to their quarters. Instructors will meet in the council chamber." The students rose and began to file out. As they passed, they looked at her differently than before. Some looked at her with new respect. Some looked at her with fear. Some looked at her as if they were seeing her for the first time. The who had sat beside her stopped as he walked past. His pale eyes studied her face. "How?" he asked simply. Shrugged. "Humans are good at pattern recognition. We evolved to throw things. It is what we do." Considered this for a moment. Then he nodded and walked away. The hall emptied. Soon only remained standing alone at the firing position with the rifle still in her hands. She looked at it, felt its weight, then set it down carefully. She had not meant to cause so much trouble. She had only wanted to do her best. An hour later, she was summoned to the council chamber. The council chamber was the heart of the academy. It was a round room with a high ceiling painted with the stars of 1,000 worlds. Around the edges sat the senior instructors, 20 beings from a dozen species. At the center stood a single chair, made of plain metal, where those called to testify must sit. Walked to the chair and sat down. The instructors watched her from all sides. Head instructor spoke first. "We have reviewed the sensor data from your shot. The results have been confirmed by 3 independent systems. You achieved a perfect strike at maximum distance on your first attempt. Do you deny this?" "No, sir." "Do you have any explanation for how this was possible?" Thought about her answer carefully. "My species has been hunting with thrown weapons for hundreds of thousands of years. We developed the ability to calculate trajectories quickly because our survival depended on it. We cannot run as fast as our prey. We cannot fight with claws or teeth. We had to throw rocks and spears accurately or we died." She paused, then continued. "When humans joined the galactic community, we discovered that our brains process certain kinds of information differently than most species. What you call ballistic calculation, we call intuition. We do not think about the math, we feel it." The instructors murmured among themselves. An instructor leaned forward. "Are you saying all humans can do what you did today?" "No, sir. I am saying that some humans have a natural talent for it, and I am one of them. With practice, I have developed this talent. The shot I made today was difficult, but it was not impossible for me." Raised a hand, and the murmuring stopped. "What you did today has never been done by a first-year student in the history of this academy. It has rarely been done by anyone. The sensors logged your strike across the entire moon. The data has already been transmitted to the Galactic Military Command. By tomorrow, every academy and training facility in the galaxy will know about the human who made the impossible shot. Did not know what to say. She had not expected this. We have a problem, continued. Our examination is designed to measure student ability on a fair scale. Your performance has broken that scale. We cannot score you with the same system we use for other students because the system does not have numbers high enough. I apologize for the disruption, sir. Do not apologize. His voice was strange now, different than before. I have taught at this academy for 140 years. I have trained warriors from every species in the known galaxy. I thought I had seen everything there was to see. Today you showed me that I was wrong. He stood and walked toward her. His movements were slow and careful. Humanity is new to the galactic community. Your species has been treated with suspicion and condescension since first contact. Many believe that humans are weak, limited, unsuited for military service. Many have argued that humans should not be admitted to this academy at all. He stopped in front of her chair. Today you have proven them wrong. Today you have shown that humanity has gifts we do not yet understand. Today you have earned something that cannot be given, only taken. You have earned respect. The old reached into his robe and pulled out a small metal pin. It was shaped like a star, made of the same gray stone as the academy walls. This is the Star of Merit. It is given to students who demonstrate exceptional ability beyond the normal measures. I am permitted to award one per decade. I have not given one in 30 years. He held out the pin. Take it, you have earned it. Reached out and took the pin. It was cold in her hand, heavy with meaning. Thank you, sir. Nodded, go rest. Tomorrow everything changes. The news spread faster than expected. By the next morning, every student at the academy knew her name. By the afternoon, the story had reached the galactic information networks. By evening, her face was being shown on screens across 100 worlds. Human makes impossible shot at Galactic Academy, the headline said. First-year student breaks records and expectations. Is humanity more dangerous than we thought? Tried to ignore the attention. She went to her classes, ate her meals, practiced her techniques, but everywhere she went, eyes followed her. Students who had never spoken to her before now wanted to be her friend. Instructors who had ignored her now watched her carefully. The other humans at the academy contacted her through the communication system. There were 6 of them, spread across different years and different training programs. They wanted to congratulate her, to thank her, to ask her how she had done it. She told them the same thing she had told the council: practice, intuition, the gifts of evolution. 3 days after the examination, she was summoned to the communication center. A message had arrived for her from Earth. The communication center was a quiet room filled with screens and blinking lights. A technician led her to a private booth and connected her to the incoming signal. The face that appeared on the screen was familiar. General, the commander of Earth's Galactic Military Division. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong. He said, I have been watching the reports from 7. You have made quite an impression. Sir sat straight in her chair, the way she had been taught. Do you understand what you have done? I made a difficult shot, sir. Shook his head. No, you changed the conversation. For 40 years, humanity has been fighting for respect in the galactic community. We have been told that we are too young, too primitive, too limited. We have been given the worst assignments, the oldest equipment, the most dangerous missions. We have lost good people trying to prove our worth. He leaned closer to the screen. In one moment, you proved what we have been trying to prove for 4 decades. You showed them that humans are not weak. You showed them that we have abilities they cannot predict or control. You showed them that we are worth taking seriously. Felt the weight of his words. I only did what I was trained to do, sir. That is exactly the point. You are not special because you are different from other humans. You are special because you represent what humans can become when given the opportunity. You are the first, but you will not be the last." The general paused. His expression became more serious. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen carefully. The galactic community is watching you now. Some of them are impressed. Some of them are frightened. Frightened beings do dangerous things. You need to be careful." "Careful, sir." "There are those who do not want humanity to succeed. They have power and influence. They will try to undermine you, to discredit you, to make you fail. Do not let them. The future of our species in this galaxy may depend on what you do in the next few years." Absorb this information. It was a heavy burden to carry, but she had carried heavy burdens before. "I understand, sir. I will not let you down." Nodded. "I believe you. Good luck. Earth is proud of you." The screen went dark. Over the following weeks, noticed changes in how she was treated at the academy. The open mockery had stopped. The whispers had changed from doubt to curiosity, but not everyone was pleased with her success. The who sat next to her in tactical studies began to watch her with cold eyes. He came from a proud military family. His ancestors had been generals and admirals for generations. The idea that a human, a first year from a primitive species, had outperformed every student in the academy was difficult for him to accept. One evening, as walked back to her quarters, stepped out of a side passage and blocked her path. Two others stood behind him. They were large, strong, and angry. "Human," said. His voice was quiet but filled with threat. "You have embarrassed my family. My father watched the examination broadcast. He asked me why a human could do what I cannot." Kept her voice calm. "I did not mean to embarrass anyone." "That does not matter. What matters is that you have made the look weak. We have been warriors for 10,000 years. We will not be shamed by a creature whose species was living in caves while we conquered star systems." He took a step closer, his four hands curled into fists. "I am going to teach you a lesson about your place in this galaxy. Assess the situation quickly. 3, each twice her size, in a narrow passage with no witnesses. The odds were not good." "I do not want to fight you," she said. "That is unfortunate, because I very much want to fight you." Swung one of his massive fists, ducked under it and stepped to the side. She was smaller, which meant she was also faster. The first rule of fighting someone bigger was to not be where they expected you to be. The other two moved to surround her, backed against the wall, watching all three of them. Her heart was pounding, but her mind was clear. She had been in fights before, not against aliens, but against other humans who wanted to hurt her. The principles were the same. Attacked again. This time did not just dodge. She grabbed his arm as it passed and used his momentum against him. He stumbled forward off balance. Before he could recover, she struck him hard in the joint where his arm met his shoulder. The anatomy was different from human anatomy, but joints were joints. They all had weaknesses. Roared in pain, the other two rushed forward. Moved like water flowing between their attacks. She struck at knees, at elbows, at the sensitive spots beneath their arms. She could not match their strength, so she did not try. Instead, she used speed and precision, hitting them in places that hurt without requiring force. In 30 seconds, all three were on the ground, groaning and clutching their injuries. Stood over them, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. "I told you I did not want to fight," she said. "But humans do not only throw things well, we are also very good at hitting them." She walked away, leaving them where they lay. The next morning did not come to class. Neither did his friends. Later learned that they had reported themselves to the medical bay with injuries from a training accident. The message spread through the academy quickly. The human was not only a skilled shooter, she was also dangerous in close combat. It was not wise to challenge her. Instructor called her to his office that afternoon. "I heard about the incident in the passage," he said. "Sir, I can explain." He held up a hand. "There is nothing to explain, and his companions attacked you. You defended yourself. That is permitted by Academy rules. In fact, it is encouraged. We train warriors here, not victims." He studied her with his 4 eyes. "You continue to surprise me. Your species is full of hidden talents." "We have had to develop many skills to survive, sir." Nodded slowly. "I am beginning to understand that. The galaxy has underestimated humanity for a long time. I suspect that was a mistake." 6 months passed. His first year at the Academy moved toward its end. She had proven herself in every examination, every training exercise, every test of skill and endurance. The other students had learned to respect her. Some had even learned to fear her. But respect and fear were not the same as acceptance. She still ate alone in the meal hall. She still walked alone through the corridors. The other students watched her, but they did not include her. She was an outsider, an anomaly, a strange creature from a strange world. Then one day, everything changed again. It started with a routine patrol simulation. Students were divided into teams and sent to explore a simulated combat zone. The simulation used real environments on Seven's surface, combined with holographic enemies and obstacles. It was designed to test teamwork, tactics, and the ability to make decisions under pressure. Was assigned to Team 7 along with 4 other students. The WHO had asked her how she made her impossible shot. A female named Vara, who was known for her defensive skills. A small named Pin, whose species was famous for mechanical expertise. And since the incident in the passage had not spoken to, he attended the same classes, participated in the same exercises, but he never acknowledged her presence. His anger had cooled into something harder and colder, quiet hatred. Now they were forced to work together. The simulation began at dawn. Team 7 was dropped at the edge of a frozen canyon and given their mission. They were to navigate through hostile territory, secure a communications relay, and return to base before sunset. Along the way, they would face simulated enemies, environmental hazards, and unexpected challenges. Took position at the rear of the group. She had learned that this was the best place for a shooter. She could watch the entire team and respond to threats from any direction. Took the lead. His eyes could see in the low light of the canyon, spotting dangers before they became problems. Vara moved beside him, her armored plates ready to shield the team if needed. Pin rode on shoulder, scanning for mechanical traps with a small device. Said nothing and kept his eyes forward. For the first hour, everything went smoothly. They moved through the canyon, avoided simulated enemies, and made good progress toward the communications relay. The team worked together efficiently, even if they did not speak more than necessary. Then the canyon walls collapsed. It happened without warning. The rock above them cracked and fell, sending tons of stone crashing down. Dove forward, barely avoiding being crushed. Dust filled the air. The sound was deafening. When the dust settled, the team was split in two. Vara and Pin were on one side of the collapsed section, and were on the other. The communication devices crackled with static. His voice came through, broken and faint. "Can hear, trapped, alternative route, relay, sunset." Then silence. Looked at her. They were alone together, separated from the rest of their team, with a mission to complete and a deadline to meet. "We should find another way through," said. Did not respond. He turned and began walking along the canyon wall, searching for a path. Followed. The silence between them was heavy and uncomfortable. They walked for an hour without speaking. The canyon twisted and turned, leading them deeper into unfamiliar territory. The simulation sensors detected their movement and began generating challenges. Holographic enemies appeared and had to be defeated. Environmental hazards had to be navigated. Each obstacle required both of them to work together, even if neither of them wanted to. Finally, as they climbed a steep rock face, spoke. "Why did you come to this academy?" was surprised by the question. The same reason as everyone else, to learn to become a warrior. No, paused in his climbing and looked at her. His 4 eyes were unreadable. Humans have only been in the galaxy for 40 years. You have no military tradition, no history of space combat, no reason to be here except curiosity. So why did you come? Thought about the question seriously. I grew up in a place called New Shanghai. It was poor and crowded and dangerous. People there did not have many choices about what to do with their lives. When the opportunity to join the Galactic military program was offered, I took it because it was a way out, a way to become something more than what I was. She continued climbing. I came to this academy because I wanted to prove that humans belong in the galaxy. I wanted to show that we are not just primitive creatures from a small planet. We have something to offer. We have value. Was quiet for a long moment, then he resumed climbing. My family has produced warriors for 100 generations, he said. Every in my bloodline has attended this academy. Every one of them has served with distinction. I came here because it was expected of me, because it was my duty, because I had no choice. He reached the top of the rock face and pulled himself over the edge. When you made that shot, when you defeated me and my companions, I hated you. I hated that a human could do what I could not. It felt like everything I believed about my species, about my family, about myself was wrong. Climbed up beside him. They stood together on the ridge, looking out at the frozen landscape. But then I realized something, continued. My hatred was not about you. It was about me. I was afraid that if humans could achieve what could not, then perhaps everything I had been taught was a lie. Perhaps I was not special simply because of my blood. He turned to face her directly. I have spent the last 6 months watching you. You work harder than anyone else in our class. You never complain, you never give up. You take every insult, every slight, every obstacle, and you use it to make yourself stronger. That is not luck. That is not natural talent. That is choice. Did not know what to say. I was wrong about you. I was wrong about humans. You are not weak. You are not primitive. You are different, and different is not the same as inferior. I apologize for attacking you. It was dishonorable. He held out one of his 4 hands in the gesture of respect. Hesitated for only a moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. Apology accepted, she said. They finished the mission together. They found the communications relay, secured it, and made it back to base before sunset. When they rejoined the rest of their team, noticed the change between them immediately. Something had shifted. Something had healed. That evening, for the first time since she arrived at the academy, did not eat alone. The final examination of the first year was the grand exercise. Every student participated in a massive war simulation that covered half of 7's surface. Teams competed against each other in a complex scenario involving multiple objectives, shifting alliances, and unexpected twists. The exercise lasted 3 full days and tested everything the students had learned. Team 7 had become something unexpected over the final weeks of the year. Vara and Pin had trained together, studied together, and learned to trust each other. They were no longer just classmates assigned to the same group. They were a team. The grand exercise began at midnight. Teams were scattered across the frozen landscape and given their initial objectives. Team 7 was assigned to capture and hold a strategic mountain position called the Iron Peak. The first day was brutal. Enemy teams attacked from every direction. The weather turned harsh, with winds strong enough to knock off their feet. Supplies ran low. Injuries mounted. By the end of the first night, half the teams in the exercise had been eliminated. Team 7 survived because they worked together. Eyes spotted enemies in the darkness. Vara's armor protected them from attacks. Pin repaired their damaged equipment with clever improvisation, led them with fierce determination, and watched over them all, her rifle ready to strike down any threat. On the second day, they reached the Iron Peak. The mountain was defended by a team of fourth-year students, experienced warriors who had been training at the academy for years. Taking the position from them would require everything Team 7 had to give. They spent hours planning their assault, studied the defensive positions through her scope, counting enemies and measuring distances, designed the attack strategy based on military traditions modified for their unique team composition, scouted the approach routes in the darkness. Vara identified the weak points in the enemy defenses. Pin prepared special equipment that might give them an advantage. At dawn on the third day, they attacked. It was chaos from the first moment. The fourth-year students were skilled and organized. They had held this position against multiple assault attempts and knew every trick, every tactic, every approach. But they had never faced a team like Team 7. Took position on a ridge overlooking the mountain. From there, she could see the entire battlefield. She began firing, placing shots with impossible precision. Every time an enemy raised their head, she put a simulated hit on them. Every time they tried to reposition, she tracked them. She was not just a shooter, she was a storm. Meanwhile, led the ground assault. His four arms wielded weapons with devastating efficiency. He crashed into the enemy lines like a force of nature, drawing attention and creating chaos. Moved through the shadows, appearing where enemies did not expect and disappearing before they could respond. Vara protected the team's flanks, her armored body absorbing hits that would have disabled anyone else. Pin sabotaged the enemy's equipment, causing weapons to malfunction and communications to fail at critical moments. The battle lasted 2 hours. By the end, Team 7 stood at the top of the Iron Peak, and the fourth-year defenders had been defeated. Instructor's voice came through the communication system. Attention all participants. Team 7 has captured the Iron Peak with 0 casualties. This is unprecedented in the history of the grand exercise. The simulation is complete. All teams return to base. The return journey was long but filled with celebration. Other students stopped them along the way to offer congratulations. The story of their assault on the Iron Peak spread quickly. By the time they reached the academy, they were already becoming legends. The closing ceremony was held in the great hall where had made her impossible shot. The same stone walls, the same high ceiling, the same rows of seats filled with students and instructors, but everything felt different now. Instructor stood at the front of the hall and addressed the assembled students. This year has been remarkable in many ways. Records have been broken, expectations have been exceeded, but more importantly, lessons have been learned, not just about tactics and weapons, but about ourselves and each other. His 4 eyes found in the crowd. When the year began, many of you believed that you knew what strength looked like. You believed that strength was size or speed or natural ability. You believed that some species were born warriors and others were not. He paused. This year, you learned that you were wrong. Strength is not what you are born with. Strength is what you choose to become. It is the decision to keep trying when you fail. It is the courage to face those who doubt you. It is the wisdom to learn from those who are different from you. He gestured toward Team 7. This team represents everything this academy is meant to create. 5 individuals from different species, different backgrounds, different worlds. They overcame their differences and discovered that together they were stronger than any of them could be alone. That is the true purpose of the Galactic Military Academy. Not to produce individual warriors, but to forge connections that span the galaxy. Felt's hand on her shoulder stood beside her, his pale eyes reflecting the lights of the hall. Vara's armored plates clicked softly as she shifted her weight. Pin made a small chirping sound that was his species' way of expressing happiness. They had become something none of them expected. They had become a family. The ceremony ended with awards and recognitions. Team 7 received the honor of excellence, the highest award given to first-year students. received an additional commendation for her individual achievements throughout the year. But none of that mattered as much as what she felt in that moment, standing with her team. Afterward, as the hall emptied and the students dispersed, instructor approached her. A moment. She stopped and faced him. The ancient looked at her with something that might have been pride. I told you at the beginning of this year that everything would change. I was correct, but not in the way I expected. I thought your achievement would change how the galaxy sees humanity, and it has, but it has also changed how I see my own purpose. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small device. This contains a message I have recorded for the Galactic Military Command. In it, I recommend that the quota for human students at this academy be increased by 10 times. I recommend that humans be given access to advanced training programs. I recommend that humanity be recognized as a full military partner in the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Stared at him. Sir, I do not know what to say. You do not need to say anything. You have already said everything that needed to be said. You said it when you pulled that trigger and the sensors logged the strike across the moon. You said it when you stood against those who doubted you. You said it when you turned enemies into friends. He placed the device in her hand. Take this. Show it to your leaders on Earth. Tell them that the galaxy is watching, and what they see is a species that refuses to be defined by its limitations. Tell them that the future belongs to those who are brave enough to reach for it. Looked at the device, then at the old. Thank you, sir, for everything. Nodded once, then turned and walked away. Stood alone in the great hall, holding the future of her species in her hand. Through the tall windows, she could see the stars stretching out to infinity. Somewhere among them was Earth, her home, the small blue world where humanity had taken its first steps into existence. She thought about her grandmother, who had survived the collapse of cities. She thought about her mother, who had worked so hard to give her a chance. She thought about every human who had ever looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. They were not alone. They had never been alone. They were part of a galaxy filled with wonders and dangers and possibilities, and now, finally, they had proven that they belonged. Smiled, put the device in her pocket, and walked out of the hall to find her team. The first year was over. The future was just beginning. And for humanity, the future looked bright.